Welcome to the 10-Minute Book Guy. So, let's start with a question. What happens when a hiker vanishes on the Appalachian Trail, leaving behind nothing but a cryptic journal? Amity Gaige's Heartwood drops us right into this compelling mystery. But as we're about to find out, the real search here, it isn't for a missing person. It's for a missing piece of the human heart. All right, so here's how we're going to break this down. First, we'll look at the book's clever disguise. Then, we'll dive into the three central characters, uncover what this novel is really about, and wrap it all up with our final verdict. Okay, let's set the stage. On July 25th, an experienced hiker named Valerie Gillis, who goes by Sparrow, says goodbye to some folks on the trail and heads north. She's got all the right gear, seems to be in good spirits, and her husband's supposed to pick her up the very next day. And then, she's gone. She never arrives. Just like that, a massive search and rescue operation kicks off, and we're pulled right into the mystery.
Now this right here gets to the absolute core of the book, because on the surface, you think you know what you're getting, right? A missing person, a desperate search, all the ingredients of a classic thriller are there. But you figure out pretty quickly that the author is playing a completely different game. That whole external search for Valerie, it's really just a vessel, a Trojan horse for a much, much deeper exploration of the people connected to her disappearance.
So let's start with the missing person herself, Valerie. The only way we really get to know what's going on in her head is through the journal she left behind. But let me tell you, it is not what you'd expect at all. This quote is just absolutely key. You see, Valerie's journal has nothing to do with building a shelter or finding fresh water. Nope, this thing is a raw, unfiltered confession. She's a nurse who has witnessed the absolute worst of the pandemic, and it becomes crystal clear that she's not just running from something out on the trail, she's running from the trauma she's carrying inside of her. In this question, this just lays it all out there. You realize her physical journey is really just a metaphor for a much deeper internal quest. She wasn't hiking to get to some point on a map. She was hiking to find an answer to this profound, personal question about how you even begin to heal a fractured soul. All right, so now let's shift gears to our second perspective. This is Lieutenant Bev Miller, the warden who's in charge of the whole search operation. And for her, this case starts out as just a job, professional duty. But it gets personal, fast. Just like Valerie, Lieutenant Miller is carrying her own heavy internal weight. And this search, it puts her under a microscope. All that intense pressure, all that public scrutiny, it forces her to confront these deep-seated insecurities that have basically defined her entire life, from how she feels about her own body to a really complicated relationship with her mother. And you can see what the author is doing here, right? It's this brilliant parallel. Miller's hunt for clues out there in the forest becomes a hunt for understanding within herself. Through her story, we get this incredible look at the crushing weight of responsibility and the real personal price that people pay for a life spent in public service. Okay, our third and final viewpoint comes from a woman named Lena, and her story feels incredibly modern, incredibly relevant for right now. She's an elderly, isolated woman who gets completely obsessed with the case, but she does it all from behind her computer screen, diving headfirst into online forums and forming this really intense connection with a total stranger she believes is out there helping. So this Reddit user, Terrible Silence. Lena pours everything into this online friendship. In her mind, he's this handsome, rugged outdoorsman, a true kindred spirit, her partner in solving the mystery. For her, he becomes more than a friend. He's basically her lifeline to an outside world she can't really be a part of anymore. And then, the story just delivers a devastating blow. Lena gets a message, but it's not from him. It's from his mother, and the truth is just shattering. The rugged forager she's been confiding in is actually a young man struggling with mental illness, living in a psychiatric center. The whole connection was an illusion. I mean, this is just absolutely heartbreaking, and it gets to one of the book's biggest, most powerful themes, our desperate search for connection in an age of isolation. Lena's story is this raw, honest look at modern loneliness and the beautiful yet unbelievably fragile nature of the relationships we build online. Okay, so let's recap. We've got a traumatized nurse running from her past, a stoic warden confronting her own demons, and a lonely woman searching for connection online. So what's the thread that ties all of this together? Well, this is where we get to the real heart of the novel. Because Heartwood, when you get right down to it, is not a thriller. It's a psychological novel through and through. The author isn't really interested in whether Valerie is found. The real mystery isn't where's Valerie, it's what the search reveals about the inner lives of these three women.
And the way she pulls this off is just brilliant. It's like a literary bait and switch. First, she hooks you with a classic mystery. We all want to know what happened, right? But once she has your attention, she completely flips the script. The plot becomes a tool, like a surgeon's scalpel, used to carefully dissect the minds of our characters and lay bare their deepest fears, traumas, and desires.
So, let's get to it. What's the bottom line on Heartwood? What makes this novel so significant, so moving?
This quote from Valerie's journal, it really is the heartwood of the entire novel. You know, after the book takes us through so much pain and trauma and loneliness, it arrives at this incredibly hopeful and unifying message that at the absolute core of the human condition, the source of everything, is love. So here's our final take. Heartwood is an absolute masterclass in character study that uses a thriller's framework to ask these deep, important questions about healing, duty, and connection. Look, if you're just looking for a simple page-turner, this might not be for you. But if you appreciate literary fiction that values psychological depth over plot twists, it is a challenging, unforgettable, and deeply rewarding read. The book really leaves you with this final, resonant question. In looking for others, what parts of ourselves do we really hope to find? This is the 10-Minute Book Guide, your weekly shortcut to deciding what to read next.